that said, I grew up my whole life thinking that like church really moved me, and then I went to a concert and it turns out I just love live music.
You sent that to me and I about fell out of my chair.
Fell out of my chair because I think a hallmark of like the modern Christian evangelical movement has been good music. Welcome back and hello.
Hello, turkeys.
I'm still doing the Mario Kart countdown in my head.
I didn't even hear it this time.
Oh man. Beep, boop, boop, beep. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are on the precipice of turning episode 30. So in honor of our last day in our episode 20s, we are going to circle back around to the beginning and talk about kind of the whole premise, if you will, of how we came up with the name of our podcast, Nonsexual Soulmates. So if you are new to the scene and you've had questions, maybe this will answer for you. This isn't just a random name that we pulled out of our buttholes because it had, consonants.
So how did we come up with the name? I mean, I just want to hear you say it.
I know, I keep thinking of how to say this in a succinct manner. But basically, Kayla and I for a long time have joked that we feel like in different languages across time, depending upon what religious stage of our lives we are in. But we've always said we feel like we've been friends for a long time, or it's just like deeper than just any rando friend. I don't know how to describe it, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm shitting on all my other friends because I'm not. But I feel like as we've gotten older, we've articulated like we feel like we're soulmates, except I'm not sexually attracted to women. And then that became a joke that we're soulmates non-sexually, because that sounds way better than best friends, because honestly that word just grosses me out.
I don't like that. And you can't be like, you're my soulmate, like in a friend way. There's just too many words.
Yeah, way too many words. And I hate the word best friend as much as I hate the word fiance. So I don't know, but when we were pondering names for this, it was just like all of a sudden it just came out of the universe.
And it stuck hard, obviously.
And then Kayla had a whole rabbit trail that she led me down about souls and soul connections. And that's what we're talking about today. Boop.
I love it. Dude, souls, it's a whole topic that I am really excited to get into.
It's a whole topic that I feel like I'm just peeping into, but I'm really here for it, because the day that Kayla mentioned this theory to me, I pooped my pants because I feel like it was a dead ringer. But before we go diving straight into the deep end, because I won't have a lot to contribute, I don't feel, to the other side of this conversation, we're starting off with the question of, is there a particular song that you feel reaches in and like tickles your soul? I don't know if you want me to go first or if you want to answer it.
Well, I have an answer, but I always start second guessing. I'm not going to change it, but you go first.
Okay. And the reason kind of that we're asking this too is because I think some of the stuff that we're talking about with souls and how we're connected to people and what happens when we die and all of that sort of, for me, hinges on like a spirituality that you and I both grew up in pretty heavy, but just more from like an organized religion, evangelical Christian point of view. And it was funny because I think some of these conversations for us started happening when, this sounds so fucking lame, but when I found a meme that said, I grew up my whole life thinking that like church really moved me, and then I went to a concert and it turns out I just love live music.
You sent that to me and I about fell out of my chair.
Fell out of my chair because I think a hallmark of like the modern Christian evangelical movement has been good music. And like good drums and bass and just and like a harmony anytime, and like
I love me a
Hillsong,
good harmony.
bro.
Yes.
And then
Mm-hmm.
Hillsong, and then that one other lady that I can't remember that came out of the Hillsong church, which this is not an endorsement of the Hillsong church, but they started playing songs in like flat minor keys. And they were the first people that I heard in church that left like the Chris Tomlin CDG,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
set of
Yep.
chords, and all of a sudden we're playing songs that are in like B flat minor, and I'm always here for a minor chord. And then I pooped my pants, and then I don't know, my whole like circle of life came together when I read that meme. So for anybody who says memes aren't important, that was like a pivotal shift in my life. I really identified a major source of connection in my life to music.
Yeah, no, that was pivotal. It's like an epiphany of like, oh my God, what was happening? But music has always moved me a lot. Like, obviously, I was a band geek and I played piano and I sung in choir and I did show choir. Like, literally anything musical, I was there. Music has always moved me, and I'm even more of a nerd. And like, even just singing a cappella in a choir, like there would be times where we would hit the crescendo of the part in the song where I would like tear up in high school. Like, put it together, Kayla. Like, music is just very, I think it's something that everyone connects on to. It's very universal, so it's easy
Mm-hmm.
to get moved by something like that. But I'm curious to see what your song is,
I
or
know
hear
it.
what your song is.
I've been trying to like connect the dots on some of these and think about it because I think there's a lot. And I talked about before that Dave Matthews Band Here on Out like hit me one day and made me
Mm-hmm.
tear up. And also, just side note, I feel like all of my meme talk comes to the point of saying I think music is spiritual, and I think music was my first instance of connecting to something bigger than myself was through music. And I feel like it's a big catalyst. So I'm really thankful that I did get that out of my church days. um I feel like I keep having whole church experiences, if you will, in my car because I finally have a car with speakers. And I think you and I have talked about this, but like, I don't have a fancy sound system in my home, and I've got some decent speakers and like a sound bar. So there's like decent bass and all of that. But there is nothing better than like the 360 of listening to music in your vehicle. What? Okay.
I
Lots of,
agree.
oh man. So my other song that I feel like was a soul tickler that I'm really embarrassed by is that one that everyone keeps talking about on social media because Joe Rogan shared it. Now it's famous. But it's that one that I sent you.
Uh-huh.
There's something about like a raspy dude singing like bluegrass music that has lyrics that talk about just common human suffering that really seems to get to me because there's another song by Chris Stapleton that's called Simple Song, and he talks about like something bad happening, and then it goes, oh no, it's like everything's okay, it's just me, oh, it's the kids, the dogs, and you and me. And
Mm.
something about like, oh, it's the way it's all right when everything goes wrong. It's just the sound of a simple song. And Jason and I
Ooh.
like drink that and get drunk to it. But I'll get real in my feelings about that. And then there's another one I was listening to on my way home today. I'm sorry, I have a lot of answers. By Tyler Childers called Universal Sound.
Okay.
And again, it's just another person like living through like the grind of, I don't know, West Virginia and the coal mines and just like a lot of the tragic parts of our country. But that song talks about, well, I mean, universal sound, but he's kind of talking about like the sound of the universe and how we're all connected through this, like
Mm-hmm.
basically saying we're all connected through this vibration, which I'm also really here for. And I get really into the lyrics. But he has a part where he talks about like, when I die, return me to the universal sound, which then ties right into what we were talking about. But that played on
Love
my way
that.
home today, and I got very in my feelings
Ooh.
about it.
Ooh. I love that.
Woof. But also, anytime like a church choir comes in the background of a rap song,
Oh, ask ask Kenny if there is any ever a church choir or just a woman singing higher notes in the background. I
Yes.
am here for it.
Yes.
So here for the women voices in the background.
Oh my God.
Whatever kind of stuff they're doing in the background, I love that shit.
This podcast was created using Riverside's great studio software. They allow us to record remotely with high quality audio and video tracks. We use buzzsprout.com as our hosting platform, and they allow us to schedule our episodes and distribute them to all the different places that people like to listen. Click our affiliate links in the show notes to find out more and to help us support our show. P.S. Each purchase through our affiliate link gives us a small commission at no cost to you. Thanks for listening, and we'll get back to the show. I'm gonna have to find which song it is and then post it. But Chris Stapleton has one, and he's got a real like deep, raspy, soulful voice. And then there's one where the woman comes in the background. Same thing, poops me right in the. It's like a soul brown note. Something just hits.
Yeah.
What was your
Well,
answer?
you have specific songs, and it was really hard for me because I will literally cry at like the melody of a commercial. So that's my problem. But, and I know we've discussed that before. It, I mean, I felt like there's an album more so that encapsulates such an array of feelings that speaks to me. But I'll preface this with saying like I I have a wide range of music taste. I won't go super rock and I won't go super like country, but I listen to anything from like Gary Clark Jr. to Adele to Lil Baby. Like it's all over the place.
Lil
But
Dark. Sorry.
yeah.
His name just makes me
Lil,
laugh.
is it him and that country singer? Oh,
Oh
shoot,
my God.
everyone's gonna.
Oh, I love that song so much.
I love.
Yes.
Yes.
I listened to that on
Yes.
repeat.
Love that guy, even though he's like way country for me. Okay, anyway, the album that I feel just like is my jam since 2019 when it came out is Chris Brown's Indigo CD or album CD. I'm dating myself.
I'm gonna add this to my playlist.
Yeah. It's like there's some songs that are kind of moody, and then there's some songs that are like really uplifty, summer like good vibes, and then there's some that are like a little harder hitting. So it's just like super encompassing, and every time I listen to it, I'm just enveloped in it. So that's my answer.
There's some that this music, like the notes, get me, and there's some that the words get me. And I'm
I am
embarrassed.
notorious. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm embarrassed that the ones where the music really hits, if I listen to the words, it's like, woof, this is not good for women.
I am notorious for just listening to the musicality of a song instead of the actual words. I'm horrible at that. I always do that. Kenny's like, "You really like the song?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's super hard hitting." And he's like, "Are you listening to the words?" I said, "Nope."
I get more in that zone too when I'm working out. So I'll have it playing really loud in our shed where I'm working out, and then Jason will come out to see me and he'll be like, "God damn." And I'm like, now that you mention it, it is pretty rough.
Yeah.
But I can't help
it.
That's why sometimes I have now switched to Bad Bunny, because some of his beats really hit me in my core and turn into a real earworm for me. It's easier for me to tune out the Spanish. I still know what he's saying, but Jason doesn't, so I don't have to like offend him morally with the degradation of the lyrics that I'm listening to.
It's probably smart. My allergies.
So all of that leads me to say that I definitely still believe in higher power. I definitely think that we're all connected, because I think I could hear, if I heard music in another language, I still think, actually I know for sure because I have, but if you put a choir, they could be singing like any jib jab language, but it's just that like crescendo of voices together. Anyway, that's what leads me to my new feelings of spirituality, which is everyone being connected and no one being better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And kind of that whole like we all carry the divine within us, and it's around us, and we're plugged in. And coming to that awareness and honoring that, I think, has been my new way of keeping some spiritual aspect in my life.
I like that. And it's interesting because I feel like music, especially, has a certain type of frequency. And everyone talks about a frequency, and it's very woo woo now, but it definitely has, well, this is off topic slightly, but there's a frequency where it's called shoot. I don't know what it's called, but you put sand on a table and you play a certain music frequency, and it literally changes to certain patterns depending on the frequency it is. I find that so fascinating, and I do feel like that just proves that we are more connected than we think we are, just based on the frequencies that are in the universe and the frequencies that we're putting out, like, as ourselves. But getting back on topic, I remember when we were, like you said, we've been through many a religious stage. I grew up in the Catholic Church and then kind of switched to more of like Christian evangelical, if you want to call it that. What do you believe? Let me ask you a question, Kaylee. You're always asking me the questions.
Oh,
What did, I think we are on the same page, but like, what is it that we were told? Like, what happens when you die? What does that look like?
I know. This is definitely, well, beside the whole like turn or burn thing that I grew up with, um, for I guess the people that knew the magic words and ended up in heaven. Okay, I'll tell you all. Oh God, I swear to you, all of I went to a lot of different evangelical churches, and they all had very similar interpretations, and it's interesting. Um, because I was just at a funeral, and there was a very traditional like Southern Baptist pastor, and so of course he was talking about, this person's in heaven and da da da. And as he was saying it, I was like, damn, it's the same. It's the same story I heard up north in non-denominational churches
Mm-hmm.
as it was down here in Southern Baptist. So it was just the timing was funny because we had already planned to do this episode, and then here was this like in your face reminder of like what happens when you die and what did I grow up
Mm-hmm.
thinking and the contrast of how I feel now. But it was definitely like you go to heaven, and then the pearly gates, which I remember being a kid and thinking they were just these giant pearls, and you like go through. Of course your name has to be written in the book of life, and in my head's imagining and all the pictures of it, it's this small book, and I guess it's magic like Santa's list, even though there's
Mm-hmm.
like billions of people, it's somehow contained in something small. And then I always remember them saying the streets would be made of gold, but the gold was so pure that it was see-through. So I always imagined this like yellowy, glassy, like yellow brick road.
Mm.
And then it's like, what do you do all day? Well, everyone's just happy all the time because like the splendor of God keeps everyone happy. And there's that Bible verse like in my home there are many rooms. So I just imagined this like giant Pueblo apartment adobo. I've never really said this out loud of what was imagining in my brain. And then I always, as a kid, pictured God's face. This sounds insane. I always pictured God's face looking like the moon. That
Interesting.
doesn't sound like it looks pleasant or nice. I can't tell you why I thought that. I think one time as a kid, I thought I saw a face in the moon, and I was like, that's God's face in the moon.
Oh,
So I just
wow.
imagined this like moony faced person shining on everybody and everybody just being happy all the time.
Yeah, I never went down that specifically in my in my head. I think I've envisioned gates, like huge white gates with like clouds and fog coming around it, but there was like literally no sides to the gates. Like you probably could just walk around, but like it's just the gates and you just gotta wait there and you're like, oh my god, am I gonna get in or not? But what I remember being curious about and like, you know, in our humanly body down here, this doesn't sound very good to me. I'm just gonna go up there and be so overwhelmed by God's glory that I'm just gonna be like, oh my god, this is the best ever. And like, how do you continuously feel like that without doing something? Or like, I don't know. I was always one like, how does that feel for eternity? You're just gonna be happy and overwhelmed in a good way for literally forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And it's not going to stop. When I think about eternity, that freaks me the fuck out, you know? And so I happenstance across this book, and I just found it so freaking interesting to hear a different perspective on what happens in the afterlife. That it, and I'm not saying I believe this entirely, because I think there's so many different beliefs out there, but it is interesting because this falls in line with some other religions about like reincarnation and stuff. So I'm not endorsing this or not, because nobody knows what happens, but the book is super freaking interesting, and it actually goes into people's real life experiences. I don't know. Like, there's one thing that says, like, there's the scripture and the word, and obviously that's heavy and important, but then there's a lot of freaking life evidence of people going, like, you know, almost death experiences, or they die and they come back, or they go under hypnotism. Is that a word? They get
Hypnosis.
hypnotized. They get hypnotized and then find these memories of these past lives and what happens in between the past lives. And there's just so many stories that it's like, oh my God, how could this not hold some truth potentially? Yes.
As I've gotten older, I find it very arrogant to think, I find it very arrogant that you think of all of the religion in the world and all of the like people that have existed in the world and across time, that your teeny tiny little dot of a perspective is the interpretation. Because if the divine is so big that we can't explain it, what makes you think that you fucking explained it? I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what's bothered me. That started to bother me, and then it started bothering me just on a Christianity perspective, because when I found out that there was a different Bible in the Eastern Orthodox, I was like, well, how does that work? We can't even agree
Mm-hmm.
on what books belong in the Bible. That blew my
Mm-hmm.
whole mind when I learned how that process was decided. And then when I really started studying Spanish and understanding languages, I realized how much influence and change that there is when you translate something from an original language and how much you lose.
Mm-hmm.
And ancient Hebrew is so different. And even just understanding Spanish, I understood the Bible in a new way. And so I'm just like, how did you have these scrolls and then you found all of them? How do you know things weren't missing? How do you know this was like the complete thing? And that's just what this certain group of holy people that we decided were the holy people wrote. And then this group of dudes got together in a room and they picked out which ones they liked the best, and they couldn't agree. So they split into East and West. And then they made both of their Bibles. And they're arguing about theirs. And then if you just look at the Western Orthodox Bible, they're all still fucking arguing about New King James or King James or New Living. And they all have their squabbles of how they write it and how they interpreted it. And
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how any one of you in any one of your camps can say for certainty this is the thing and everyone else is wrong. I mean, just the
Mm-hmm.
arrogance behind that I find astounding.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is
I
to
mean,
say, I don't feel like you
oh,
can have one or the other. Like,
right.
what if what if what you're about to describe actually fits into all these other religions? It's just we all have like a little piece of what
Mm-hmm.
like the divine looks like, and we just
Mm-hmm.
can't. We've all been just trying to pin it down into its little corner, and it's like, no, I'm bigger than that.
Right. As humans, we can't really even understand fully. So how are we going to try to explain it? You know what I'm saying? Like, this could be viewed as a completely different opinion, or it could actually, in the big scheme of things, fit into what is in scripture. But I mean, I I don't really feel like I need to find the answers in this lifetime on this earth in this body of mine right now. I just know that I believe in a higher power. I still call that thing God and whatever you want to call it, but I don't know if everything's so concrete below that or after that.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, the book, for anyone who's like, tell us what the freaking book is called Journey of the Souls. Journey of Souls, sorry, by Michael Newton. So, I don't even know where I came across this, probably Instagram. Um, but to give you the hypothesis, no, to give you the footnotes, the summary, it's this psychiatrist. Shoot, he's a doctor. He does hypnosis. He did a case study on, I believe, 29 people who he put into deep hypnosis and asked them a bunch of questions to lead them back into, to help them find their way through past lives and then what happens in between the past lives. And it's freaking crazy. Like, it gave me a whole new perspective and, like, actually positive outlook on life. And essentially, these people are describing in very similar fashion, like the way they, once you die, they kind of watch themselves leave their body, and it's not painful, it's not sad, it's not scary, but it's a little unknown, and you go up into, it's very hard for me to explain. I really suggest you read the book. You go basically up into this other eternity area where your soul reconnects with, like, your other soulmates and your family soul and your friend souls, and everyone's like, it's like a hub. It's like, that's where actually life is. Have you seen the movie? It's a cartoon movie, and I should have pulled it up before this podcast. It's these little minion things, and they, like, have to figure out what their purpose is in life, and then, like, they jump into this big hole and
You
then, like,
mean
go
the
into their
literal
lives.
minions?
No, 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 no.
Oh.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up next time you're talking. Anyway, it reminds me of that because
Banana.
I'm not saying we're minions.
Because they
No,
do go on
basically,
a quest to find their purpose.
that's interesting. No, not talking about minions. Sorry, wrong choice of words. But your soul is basically, you have different levels of soul, and in each lifetime you go into, you are learning a lesson. You are trying to better yourself. You are experiencing something not to punish you or reward you in this lifetime. It's all a stepping stone to get to the next level of your soul life. So you're up here, you've got family, you've got friends, like your soul has its own situation, and then you literally decide what life you're going to come back into. And there's literally YouTube videos. I just pulled this up today before we hopped on, of kids telling their parents, yeah, I know you're my mom. I picked you guys out. Shit like that. Like, they remember, because you get to decide, and then you go into your body, you live your life, you learn your lesson, and then you come back up and you, like, basically study group it up there. Like, what did you learn in this life, Kaylee? What did, whatever your soul name is. And
Schmoogly
basically
moo.
the, yeah, maybe. Um, but, like, you and me, just as an example, or you and Jason, and me and Kenny, we are connected up there in that realm, and we tend to find each other down here in different relationships, and what that looks like is a little different every time, but you typically do find your soul people, which is why, soulmates as has always spoken to me.
Mm-hmm. Let me conceptualize this a little bit. So it's like, if you need a visual aid, it's like there's all these different galaxies. So imagine each galaxy is its own little whirlpool of souls. So they
Mm-hmm.
all kind of have their own, there's like groupings, right? Like, so you kind of have this grouping of souls that you swirl around with in your
Mm-hmm.
galaxy. And then randomly they'll shoot down back into like linear time.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the people that when you don't necessarily have a memory of your past lives or your outside of time life, but when you come here and you're back in the linear timeline, there's those people that you bump into where you just have this instant connection, and it's because y'all have been connected before and you're part of that same little pool. And I that resonates so strongly with me because there's people that I've really cared about and had fun with, but have not had that click. And they are the people who float in and out of my life very easily, and I don't feel a gap when they're gone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
nothing against them, nothing wrong with them, no falling out, but like they move away and then they just have moved away
Mm-hmm.
and there's no issue. And I would not ever call them up and go seek them out and try to hang out. And I'm sure if we try to talk on the phone, it would be weird. Versus other people, it's like you talk for 2 seconds and it's like, this is my person.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's like in dating or friendships or, whatever else. I
Mm-hmm.
just think it's so that it just really rung true for me. And then it also to me makes sense with the whole old soul concept, which is a saying that people have had for forever. But I mean, I can think of one child in particular where I'm like, you are fucking ancient.
Mm-hmm.
Just the stuff that he says and the way that he behaves. I mean, he feels more wise than half of the old people that I know.
Mm-hmm. For everyone probably listening, screaming the name of the movie I was trying to describe, it's freaking called Soul. It's called
Oh, it's
Soul
the newer Disney
by
movie.
Disney. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know what you're talking
It's
about.
it's kind it's not the same, but it's kind of like it kind of fits. It's kind of what it reminds me of. Like they're the little soul blobs are like living up there, figuring out shit, and then they jump down into a life. Um, but yeah, people also say, you have like old souls, or you just feel like an instant connection with people. People talk about deja vu. I actually think that's a whole different topic that I'd love to get into with like parallel universes and everything, but that's completely different. Um, but like phobias and like weird like sensations around certain things, like people hypothesize that, if you have a phobia of, I don't know, cars or something, like people have true like anxiety with driving cars and stuff, and that could be a different reason. But what if you died in a car crash in one of your past lives? Like you kind of have these weird memories, and some people remember more than others, and sometimes you don't remember anything. But it just makes sense that you are here for a lesson. And the book even goes into like Earth is one of the harder places to drop into because it is so freaking hard, and there's always turmoil, and there's war, and there's hate, and there's these different worlds depending on which life you're going into and what level you are. It's not always Earth. Like if you drop into a different galaxy or a different planet, that maybe that planet doesn't have war. It's just like super weird, and it gets into the weeds, but I just found it so fascinating and honestly super relieving that there's not so much pressure to make this one life as much as it can be, and then it's over forever. It's so daunting.
I think it also makes it less tragic when you lose someone early
Yeah.
or, just some of those different things. It gives,
Mm-hmm.
to me, that feels more peaceful than like, oh, sorry, you got 5 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
that seems fucked. And I could never fit that into the organized religion framework that I was given. Like, it doesn't, God loved them so much that they wanted them home sooner. I'm like, well, then what's the point of any of it then? So
Yeah.
like this like 9-year-old nun is a piece of shit because God left her here this whole time. I just couldn't ever walk that stuff out to its logical conclusion. And then I was never satisfied with the like, you just have to have faith. It's not gonna make
Mm-hmm.
sense. I don't subscribe to the thing of if I have a question, a religious question for the religious leader, they have the easiest out. Oh, well, you just couldn't possibly understand. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not fair. I know I just got
Yeah.
done saying I think there's things that are incomprehensible, but their whole framework falls apart when that's the answer, which is why
Mm-hmm.
I think I connect more to stuff like this. That's a looser time frame that to me really hits home with all of us being connected and having something more going on than just being like a bag of bones and blood with electrical pulses that run through us. Because I've been present in the room before when someone dies and there's a shift. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't someone I was emotionally connected to because it was when I interned with hospice. So this isn't me being like, oh, they're gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Okay.
you felt something exit the room. Like I don't know how else to describe it. And I felt that on the other end, like Jason and I came to the hospital when my nephew was born. And we came in the room like very shortly after my sister-in-law had him. And it was the same sort of feeling for me, almost like a spiritual shift, but in sort of a
Mm-hmm.
different way, that now there was this new life that was here that wasn't there like in the same way a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
So even just before I'd even heard of this as like an idea or a way to think about lives and souls and eternity, I think that my brain was already making some of these connections itself, or I was experiencing things that already sort of reinforced this for me.
Yeah. No, I love that. It just really it made it less daunting, and it made me feel, I don't know, like just less pressure. Like, let me do my absolute best in this life, and I'm gonna go back up and rehash everything out with my besties up there, and then we're gonna come down and do it again a little bit differently. And it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting now that we've had our son. I have to tell myself, like, this is my baby, and I want the best for him, and I'm gonna, there's gonna be influence, but that's a whole soul that is not mine, and he picked us for a reason, and whether that's true or not, it's comforting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was literally talking to him the other day. I was kind of working out and like talking to him because I'm just trying to try to communicate with him. I was like, thanks for choosing us. Like, we're going to do the best and we're going to be here to guide you. But like, ultimately, you are who you are, and whatever you want to do, you can do it. And we want to, help you flourish in that. But you are your own soul, and we're just so happy you picked us. And I love you so much. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's a cool perspective. And instead of being like, this random thing is ours now. And I don't know. It
I
feels
like that.
better. Yeah.
I think that it's a good way to look at it too, because it does take the pressure off in a lot of ways. And I think it can remove a lot of guilt from parents, because you can do
Mm-hmm.
your best and the
Mm-hmm.
outcome not be what you imagined a positive outcome to be.
Right.
And it's like but that person, that's a whole person, that's a whole being with its own autonomy. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
up to you to like try to smash it into being something that you want it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And that really lets the pressure kick off of you, because when you said that, that really hits with me too, because everyone's like YOLO. And I'm like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
have YOLO money, bitch. Like I can't I can't do all this shit in this short amount of time. It makes you feel behind. At least that's how
Mm-hmm.
I have always felt, like, oh, I better like just wring out every last drop, because you only live once and then this is it. And then it's like, what if I die tomorrow? But I have to go to work today. I mean, how do you reconcile that otherwise?
Yeah, it's crazy. I would very highly suggest reading the book because I have a tendency to not explain things very well, and I am trying to get my point across, but it's such a good book, and you can listen to it on audio. I just, it just was very appealing to my current stage of thought processes. Um, Again, I don't know if reincarnation is the end all be all. Can you reincarnate into a bug, an animal? Do you just stay in the human form? Like, there's still a lot of questions around all of this, but there's so many.
Aliens.
Why do I make that noise? No, but that's Kaylee. You just kind of sparked something. Like I said, you don't have to always come down to Earth. You don't have to fall into Earth. You could go to other planets and other beings that look like aliens to us because we only know human form. But like you could reincarnate into a quote unquote alien.
Bruh, we're someone else's aliens.
Yeah, bro.
I'm an alien. I have had the bulgy eyes my whole life, but I didn't know.
Oh
I
my
want
god.
full disclosure. I did not smoke, eat, or consume weed before this episode. This is just the kind of shit that I've always loved talking about. So even if it's purely hypothetical, And even if like 2 years from now I listen to this and I think that was a stupid thing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to just think and wonder. And that again gets back to the point of this podcast, because the point of the title was calling ourselves non-sexual soulmates because we feel like we've been friends in past lives, but also the purpose of creating this platform and communities was so that we could ask questions and explore ideas and do it without judgment and be who we are right now.
And have the power to change our minds.
Full circle. I'm going to go to work tomorrow and tell people that we're aliens to the other people. What if we're the aliens?
What if we are the aliens? It's like that Twilight Zone where everyone's super, super ugly and they're working on and operating this woman who's supposed to be super ugly. And you take the mask off and she's this beautiful one. And then everyone else is like rats. They like look like nasty people. And that is their standard of beauty. It's all about perspective. I love other people's opinions. I love hearing about different hypotheses. Yees. Dudes, read the book. It's called. This is not sponsored by Michael Newton, but I would either. Yeah, you should read it. It's called Journey of Souls.
I have a friend who's a Reiki master who's
Ooh.
so knowledgeable in all of this. And then when I told her about this book, she spouted off like 15 more that people should read too.
Oh yeah.
And when I get this set up for doing local interviews, she's on my list of people to talk to. So she can tell us more because she's older than us. And I don't want to tell her story for her, but she has some memories of her past lives that she shared with me before that was so interesting. Like, kind of had like a flashback slash realization when she was in a location that she used to live. Bro, I'm here for all of it. And just like you said, I love other people's opinions and other points of view. I just don't like it when other people only want to live in their little box. Like,
Mm-hmm.
again, because to me it feels arrogant to think that my little corner of this entire gigantic universe that we can't even imagine how big it is, that have aliens according to Congress, my little piece of that I've occupied on this blip in the radar of known time is the only right point of view. I just think that's insane.
Mm-hmm. And I also think it's insane that people frown upon or get so angry about even just talking about it.
Yeah.
Having conversations about taboo topics is so taboo. Like, you should be able to talk through things, whether you're right in the moment or wrong, or whether you're just talking to it to explore the idea. I think you have a right to talk about the nitty gritty, spicy topics, and I think you have a right to change your mind. And I think you should listen to people and come to your own conclusions, but those that can change. Life is ever evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, so are your lives. Like, you're gonna change. Maybe you'll come back as a fly next time. I don't know.
I know, dude.
You never know. So
It's true.
crazy.
You never know. And I think life is so boring. Again, the premise of our podcast. Like, I think life is boring if all you ever do is surround yourself with people who think like you and do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a hard time if people are not grounded in empathy and compassion, because that removes their ability to see something from someone else's point of view. Because I think in most circumstances, you should be able to embody what someone else is thinking and imagine what that feels like. And that's what you and I like doing, is talking about like, oh, what if that's true? And then what about this?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you have to sit there and stay in it and you don't have to be that, but at least to be
Mm-hmm.
able to step into someone else's like eyeball perspective and imagine what it's like from their life. I don't want to live in a homogenous bubble. It sounds horrid.
Agreed.
But I also really like knowing that when we die, I like that's comforting to me, the thought of when we die, we'll just be back around these same pools of people that we find
Mm-hmm.
peaceful. Because you and I talk about this too. You feel like you have to be on with the people that you don't
Mm-hmm.
have that kind of a connection with. And I don't think that connection necessarily means, it doesn't have to mean time spent. It doesn't have to mean like intimacy physically or through like trauma disclosures. Like, there are just some people that
Mm-hmm.
you can click with where it doesn't feel like work.
Yep.
and you encounter them in all kinds of spaces. And I tell that to Jason all the time. It's like, it's not coming to my house that is coming home. It's going to where he is, because like, that's the home space and that's like the peaceful energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I miss that if he's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a ton of other people that I feel that way, but it definitely is something that resonates deeper than just like, oh, we get along really well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel the same way where it's all cheesy and corny, but it's like, yeah, home is not home. Home is where you are, as in
Mm-hmm.
your significant other. And I always have called Kenny my soulmate, and it's so cheesy. And he's like, moo, but we call each other our soulmates. And I like really deeply felt that, but I didn't know ever how to express it. And then I read this book. I'm like, oh shit, that's exactly what this is about. He's like my person up there.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're here, and in some form of capacity, like we'll always be with each other. And I
Mm-hmm.
just love that.
I
I
do
love it so
too.
much.
And it makes sense because I feel like Jason and I just clicked in. It just like a gear just slipped into place when we started dating. It was just like we were just walking about our lives and like the paths just converged. Like I didn't even make a conscious decision, and then it was just like all of a sudden we were just walking in the same direction.
Yeah,
But I
I
think
know.
it's why I feel like every time we just pick up right where we left off. And we've had phases
Mm-hmm.
where we haven't talked as much or whatever else, but like I don't think I could get rid of you if I wanted to.
You're stuck with me for life. No, seriously, when we were in college and stuff, we wouldn't talk for
Months.
months, at least months, like 6 months. And then it would probably be you because I suck at texting people, but you would probably text me or something. And then we'd talk on the phone and it'd be like nothing changed. And I feel like those people are like, there's just a different kind of connection there.
I feel like
And
you're just drawn to them.
mm-hmm,
Do you
yeah.
want to know what else is weird? I have one more example of this and then we'll wrap it up with a random follow up that I have to share. But I went on a trip to Costa Rica, and there is this one guy that was our like surfer guide, which this this is not sexual in any way, shape, or form. Like I didn't think he was attractive. He was kind of like a fluffy, like hairy dude, not my type, nothing of that nature. It was just so weird though. We were just chit chatting, and I was like, I feel like I've been friends with you for a long time.
It's weird.
Like across country. It was so strange. I mean, it was just like kind of the same thing. We were just kind of like jibber jabbering, and all of a sudden we just talked the entire like 2 hours.
Wow.
And it's
It's
not like I was
crazy.
like, what's your number? I mean, nothing
Right,
like
right,
that of the
right.
sort
Yeah, yeah.
whatsoever. It was just this weird sort of like, we could be siblings. So I don't know. I feel like maybe people get like sprinkled around a little bit further, but that was so weird to me because I went on that trip with this whole group of random people, and I
Mm-hmm.
had fun with them, and we all chatted. And there was one woman that I met that like we kind of kept in touch for a little bit after, but it was striking how me and that dude just were like,
How old is he?
I have no idea. Probably
Okay.
similar age to me,
Okay.
but I don't know. It was so, it was
So
fascinating.
weird.
And it's
So
not, I
crazy.
wasn't going out of my way. I don't know. It just
Mm-hmm.
happens. I have had like definitive moments in my life where I've met people, and it's just like this weird click, and not like sparks or like
Mm-hmm.
sexual energy, like nothing like that, because that's a different thing. But when you explain this, and I haven't gotten all the way through the book, when I started listening to it, I was like, dude, that just like hits a nerve for me
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
works.
Yeah, same. Still heard it.
I was trying to drink some emergency. But we'll put a link to the book in our notes, our show notes, so that y'all can click on it and buy it if you want, the audio or the real, however you like to absorb content. But thank you for sharing. And we'll have more to come. Maybe we'll kind of like find a new way to explore this topic more every decade of episodes.
I love it.
That might be a fun cue. As an abrupt shift of topics, I just wanted to read one follow-up because it was such a fun comment, and I said I was going to. But we did our Rate Yourself episode last week, yeah? Or 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. So we did our like 1 through 10, and we were just talking about like being realistic about like who are you in space. So at Wondell Geek on YouTube, he he commented on our video and said, "This conversation reminds me of a friend who, thinking he was giving his wife a compliment, told her she was easily the second best looking woman in the neighborhood. Apparently, there was this woman who lived in their neighborhood that both of them agreed was absurdly hot. So when he told her that, he was thinking along the lines of someone telling him he was the second best golfer in Tiger Woods' neighborhood. To him, that would be a significant compliment. His wife did not have that reaction."
Oh my God. Yeah, he put his foot in his mouth. But you know what's funny? I think like Kenny and I have been out and I'm like, look at her butt. And we'll kind of joke, like, she got a good butt. But obviously he's not going to agree. He kind of just like looks and he's like, no. I'm like, it's okay. Like, she's cute. But yeah, when you actually say like, oh, you're the second hottest person, like no one actually wants to hear that.
I
That's
just
great.
loved it so much. I mean, everyone has different personalities. We all have different insecurities.
Yeah.
Everyone's relationship feels a little bit different. So I'm not saying like go out and do that. If you guys, poor dude. I love that this guy thought that he was giving her a compliment, and he was, because I think subjectively, if someone else had said that, she probably would name off like 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 other women that she thinks are more attractive than her if she was going to rank all the women in the neighborhood. But it goes back to that thing we were talking about, how you just, in the episode when we were talking about our spouses, it's like we just want to live in this world that we shit rainbows and they love everything we do and we could never do anything wrong and we're the best, most perfect person to them. And maybe this soulmate thing is a better way to look at it. Like, y'all are meant to be together, but that can give you some room to like just be real about it. I still don't know if I want Jason telling me I'm the second hottest person in the neighborhood. I think he and I, though, have a relationship where like we would laugh about that and I would not take it personally. But if I was having a week where I felt fat, I probably would. So again, I am not critiquing this woman for having that reaction. Poor dude thought he was doing something nice. I just, sometimes when people miss each other like that, I think it's so comical.
Because they have their intentions are probably the same, but they misfired and they did not hit.
I love the way that he said, if someone told me I was the second best golf player to Tiger Woods, if he lived in my neighborhood, I'd be like, wow.
I also think men think a little differently.
I know they do.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Anyway, so dude, thanks for sharing. That absolutely like made my day when that comment came through. It cracked me up so much, but it's gotten me back on my thing of like, I'm not the best. I'm not the coolest. Coming back home to our podcast, like we don't have anything to say that's so special or so unique that no one's ever thought about it, because if that were the case, no one would connect with us and they wouldn't get what we were talking about. So just keep your feet on the ground, people. And we can't
I
all
should
be
just
a
mime
team.
the whole show. No, we cannot.
And we are the aliens. Okay.
Speaking of aliens, can we talk about aliens more?
I know we're gonna have to get on the alien train because everybody's talking about it. And I was trying not to be trendy, but you know what? I just am who I am. Why am I trying to be something else? Sometimes I'm trendy and I get sucked into viral music videos. I don't care because they're viral for a reason, because they all tingle our souls because we're all connected. It's like that Signs movie.
Oh yeah.
Everything happens for a reason. And it's all connected.
That's my motto.
All right, people. Thank you for tuning in again. We love you. Kayla, I love you. And until next time. Okay, love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Bing.